everyone, it's Cindy here from English TalkNest, and today we need to talk about something that no textbook will ever teach you properly. Stop making those embarrassing English social blunders. There's a whole world of unspoken rules that native speakers inherently understand, and if you don't know them, you're at a disadvantage. You could have perfect grammar, an impressive vocabulary, and clear pronunciation. But without knowing these invisible social codes, you might still feel like an outsider. Today, I'm going to unlock the secrets to smoother, more natural interactions so you can finally feel like you belong in any English-speaking environment. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why a simple "how are you" isn't actually a question, why the British treat queuing like a sacred ritual, and how to escape a boring conversation without being rude. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Let's start with something that confuses almost every English learner at some point: greetings. You'd think hello would be straightforward, right? Wrong. There's an entire art form hidden beneath these everyday exchanges. Decoding "how are you." So picture this. You're walking into your office and your colleague passes by and says, "Hey, how are you?" Now, if you're new to English-speaking cultures, you might stop, think carefully, and start explaining, "Well, actually, I didn't sleep very well last night and I have a headache, and my car broke down this morning." And suddenly, your colleague looks uncomfortable, maybe even trapped. What went wrong? Here's the secret. "How are you" is rarely an actual question. It's a greeting ritual. It's social glue. When someone says "how are you" in passing, they're expecting a quick, positive response like, "Good, thanks, how about you?" Or "Pretty good, and you?" The whole exchange takes about 3 seconds. Now, this doesn't mean people never care about how you're really doing. Context is everything. If you're sitting down for coffee with a friend, "how are you" becomes genuine. But in hallways, at checkout counters, or during brief encounters, is just a polite acknowledgement of each other's existence. Pro tip: listen to the tone and context. A quick "how are you" while walking past? Keep it brief. A concerned "hey, how are you doing?" with eye contact and a pause? They actually want to know. Now, let's talk about handshakes. In many English-speaking countries, especially the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, a handshake is your first impression compressed into 2 seconds of physical contact. But here's what they don't tell you. There's a Goldilocks zone for handshakes. Too weak, and people might perceive you as unconfident or disinterested. Too strong, and you come across as aggressive or trying too hard. You want firm, but not crushing, brief, but not abrupt. The standard business handshake involves eye contact, very important, a genuine smile, 1 or 2 pumps, up and down motions, releasing after about 2 to 3 seconds. In the US, handshakes are common in professional settings and when meeting someone for the first time. In the UK, they're slightly more formal and reserved. But here's an interesting cultural note. In many social situations, especially among younger people or in casual settings, handshakes might be replaced with a simple wave, a nod, or even a hug if you know the person well. And since the pandemic, many people have become more conscious about physical contact, so don't be offended if someone offers an elbow bump or prefers a verbal greeting instead. Speaking of physical contact, let's discuss the invisible bubble that surrounds every person in English-speaking cultures: personal space. This bubble is real, and if you pop it, people will instinctively step back. In countries like the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, people generally maintain about an arm's length of distance during conversations. That's roughly 1.5 to 2 feet, or about half a meter. This is significantly more space than in many Mediterranean, Latin American, or Middle Eastern cultures, where standing close during conversation signals warmth and engagement. But in English-speaking contexts, moving too close can make people uncomfortable, even though they'll rarely tell you directly. Instead, you'll notice them subtly backing away or creating barriers with their body language. The exception? Crowded spaces like public transport, elevators, or busy bars, where everyone acknowledges that personal space rules are temporarily suspended. In these situations, the unspoken rule is to avoid eye contact and pretend you're not as close as you actually are. It's a collective social fiction that makes everyone more comfortable. Okay, let's move on to every English learner's favorite topic. Or should I say, least favorite topic? Small talk. I know. Small talk can feel pointless. You're thinking, why are we talking about the weather when we could be discussing philosophy or sharing personal stories? But here's the thing. Small talk isn't about the content. It's about building rapport, establishing comfort, and signaling that you're approachable and friendly. Let's start with the king of all small talk topics, the weather. Yes, it's a cliché. Yes, the British are particularly famous for it. But there's a reason weather talk is universal in English-speaking cultures. The weather is safe. No one gets offended by clouds. Neutral. Everyone experiences it. Observable. You can both comment on the same thing. Constantly changing. There's always something new to mention. Here are some natural-sounding weather openers. Lovely day, isn't it? Can you believe this heat? Looks like rain later. Finally warming up, thank goodness. Notice how these are often followed by tag questions like, isn't it? Or don't you think? That's intentional. It invites the other person to agree and continue the conversation. You're creating an opportunity for connection, not delivering a meteorological report. Now, here's where things get tricky. While English-speaking cultures generally value directness and honesty, there are certain topics that are considered too personal or controversial for small talk, especially with people you don't know well. The classic forbidden topics at dinner parties or casual gatherings are politics, unless you know everyone shares similar views, religion, too personal and potentially divisive, money, how much you earn, how much things cost, debt, age and weight, considered very personal, especially for women, health problems, in detail. General comments are fine. You might be thinking, but these are important topics. And you're right. But in English-speaking social contexts, you build up to these conversations. You start with the shallow end of the pool. Weather, travel, food, sports, entertainment, and gradually move deeper as trust develops. That said, this is changing with younger generations, who are often more willing to discuss politics and social issues, even with acquaintances. But as a general rule, when in doubt, keep it light. Here's a scenario. You're at a networking event, and you've been talking to someone for 10 minutes. The conversation has run its course. You want to mingle with others. But how do you leave without seeming rude? This is the graceful exit, and it's an art form. Here are some phrases that signal you're wrapping up. Well, it's been really nice talking to you. I should let you go, or I should probably mingle a bit more. I'm going to grab another drink, but let's connect later. It was great meeting you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. The key is to make it sound mutual and positive. You're not escaping, you're both moving on to the next thing. You can also use physical cues, a slight step back, extending your hand for a handshake, or turning your body toward the exit. And here's a pro move. Introduce them to someone else before you leave. Oh, have you met Sarah? She also works in marketing. Sarah, this is Tom. You two should chat. Now you've gracefully exited and helped them both network. Everyone wins. Let's talk about something that seems simple but is loaded with unspoken expectations, social invitations. You've probably seen RSVP on invitations. It's French, répondez s'il vous plaît, which means please respond. But here's what it really means. Tell me if you're coming or not so I can plan accordingly. In English-speaking cultures, RSVPing isn't optional, it's an obligation.
If someone sends you an invitation with an RSVP request, they need to know for practical reasons how much food to buy, how many seats to arrange, whether to send you directions. Not responding is considered extremely rude because it leaves the host in limbo. They can't plan, and they're left wondering if you're coming. Even if you're declining, you must respond. A simple, "Thank you so much for the invitation. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but I hope you have a wonderful time," is perfectly acceptable. And here's the crucial part. Once you've accepted, you're making a commitment. Canceling at the last minute, unless there's a genuine emergency, is a serious breach of etiquette. Your yes is your word.
So, you've been invited to someone's home for dinner or a party. Should you bring something? The answer is almost always yes. This doesn't have to be expensive or elaborate. The gesture itself is what matters. Common options include a bottle of wine, very standard for dinner parties, flowers, but not roses, which can seem romantic unless you're close, a dessert or baked goods, a small hostess gift, nice candles, specialty foods, a book. In the US, bringing something is expected but casual. In the UK, it's similar, though British hosts will often insist you shouldn't have, even though they're glad you did. In Australia and Canada, the customs are comparable, thoughtful but not overly formal. Here's a cultural note. If you're from a culture where guests don't bring gifts and hosts are expected to provide everything, this might feel strange. But in English-speaking contexts, it's seen as showing appreciation and sharing the hosting burden. After attending a dinner party, wedding, or receiving a gift, there's one more etiquette rule that separates the socially savvy from the rest: the thank you note. Now, I'm talking about a real thank you note, not just a text message, though that's better than nothing. A handwritten note or a thoughtful email demonstrates that you took time to express genuine gratitude. For a dinner party, send your thanks within a day or two. "Dear Sarah, thank you so much for having us over last night. The meal was absolutely delicious, and it was wonderful catching up with you and Mike. We had such a lovely evening. Let's do it again soon." Is this old-fashioned? Maybe, but it's also memorable. In a world of instant messages, taking time to write a proper thank you makes an impression. People remember those who show genuine appreciation. Now let's move to a situation where cultural misunderstandings can be particularly visible: dining etiquette. You might think you know table manners, but there are subtle rules that native English speakers follow instinctively. Let's cover the essentials. Cutlery usage. In the US, it's common to use the zigzag method. Cut with knife in right hand and fork in left, then switch the fork to your right hand to eat. In the UK and Australia, people typically use the continental style. Knife stays in the right hand, fork in the left throughout the meal. Napkin placement. Place your napkin on your lap when you sit down. If you leave the table temporarily, place it on your chair. When finished, place it loosely to the left of your plate, never on the plate itself. Passing dishes. Always pass to the right. If someone asks for the salt, pass both salt and pepper together. They're a couple, they stay together. Eating pace. Try to match the pace of others at the table. Finishing way before everyone else or eating significantly slower can create awkwardness. Here's a big one. Keep your phone off the table. Having your phone visible during a meal signals that something else might be more important than the people you're with. It's become a significant social issue, especially with older generations who find it disrespectful. This is where cultural differences really show up. In many countries, one person pays for everyone, or the inviter pays. But in English-speaking countries, especially the US, Canada, and Australia, splitting the bill, or going Dutch, is extremely common among friends and colleagues. When the bill arrives, someone will usually say, "Should we split this?" And everyone agrees. You divide it evenly, or increasingly, people calculate exactly what they ordered. Apps like Venmo, PayPal, or bank transfers make this easy. However, there are exceptions. If someone specifically invited you and said, "Let me take you to dinner," they're likely paying. On dates, customs vary. Some split, some don't. It depends on the individuals. With family, older generations often insist on paying. Business dinners are typically covered by the company or the person who arranged the meeting. If you're unsure, here is a safe approach. When the bill comes, reach for your wallet and say, "How should we handle this?" This signals you're willing to pay your share without being presumptuous. Toasting is a lovely tradition, but there are unspoken rules here too. In formal settings, wait for the host or guest of honor to make the first toast. In casual settings, anyone can propose a toast. Stand if it's formal, remain seated if it's casual. The structure of a toast. First, get everyone's attention. Tap your glass gently, don't bang it. Then, say why you're toasting. "I'd like to raise a glass to Sarah on her promotion." Then, keep it brief and genuine. Next, end with "Cheers" or "To Sarah" or simply raise your glass. Everyone raises their glass, makes eye contact, and drinks. Here's an important point. Make eye contact when clinking glasses. In many European traditions, failing to do so is considered bad luck or disrespectful. While English-speaking cultures aren't as superstitious about this, it's still good practice. And never toast with an empty glass or with water. It's considered bad luck in many traditions. Finally, let's talk about navigating public spaces, where some of the most rigid, unspoken rules exist. If you want to understand British culture in particular, you must understand queuing, the practice of waiting in line. The British don't just queue, they have elevated it to an art form, a social contract, almost a spiritual practice. The cardinal rule: never, ever cut in line or jump the queue, as the British say. This is one of the few things that will make polite, reserved British people openly confront you. The unspoken rules of queuing: form a single file line even if there's plenty of space. Maintain a respectful distance from the person ahead. Wait your turn patiently without sighing, huffing, or complaining loudly. If you leave the queue, you've lost your spot, with rare exceptions for emergencies. If you're unsure where the queue ends, ask, "Are you in the queue, or is this the end of the line?" In the US, Canada, and Australia, queuing is also important, but there's slightly more flexibility. Americans might form multiple lines or use a next available system, but the core principle remains: wait your turn and don't push ahead. Here's a cultural insight. Queuing reveals deeper values: fairness, patience, and respect for others. It's a miniature democracy where everyone is equal, regardless of status or urgency.
Public transportation has its own set of unwritten rules that can make or break your reputation as a considerate commuter. Noise levels: keep conversations quiet. Phone calls should be brief and low volume. Music should only be audible through headphones, never played from your phone's speaker. In places like London, the morning commute is often completely silent. People read, check their phones, or stare into the middle distance. It's not unfriendliness, it's respecting everyone's personal bubble. Seat etiquette: give up your seat for elderly people, pregnant women, or people with disabilities. This is non-negotiable. Don't place your bag on the seat next to you during busy times. If you're sitting in the aisle seat, be prepared to move if someone needs to access the window seat. On empty trains or buses, don't sit directly next to a stranger if other seats are available. This violates the personal space rule. Boarding and exiting: let people off before you try to board. This seems obvious, but it's violated constantly. Step aside, let people exit, then board. It's more efficient for everyone. And here's a British-specific rule. On escalators, stand on the right, walk on the left. In some other countries, this is reversed, but in the UK, violating this rule will earn you annoyed looks and possibly verbal correction. Let's end with two phrases that are absolutely crucial to English social interaction: apologies and compliments. The art of apologizing. English speakers, particularly the British, apologize constantly, even when nothing is their fault. Someone bumps into you?
You apologize. You need to squeeze past someone. Sorry, excuse me. You're asking a question? Sorry to bother you, but this isn't really about admitting guilt. It's a social lubricant, a way of acknowledging another person and smoothing potential friction. So, when in doubt, say sorry or excuse me. You won't sound weak, you'll sound polite and considerate. Giving compliments. Compliments are wonderful, but there are appropriate contexts and styles. Good compliments are specific, like, I love your presentation style. You make complex topics so accessible. Genuine, don't compliment just to flatter. And appropriate. Compliment work, skills, or choices, like clothing, not unchangeable physical features in professional contexts. Responding to compliments. Simply say thank you, or thank you, that's kind of you. Deflecting excessively, like, oh, this old thing, can make the compliment giver feel awkward. Accept the kindness gracefully. Avoid personal comments about weight or appearance unless you know someone very well. You look great is fine. Have you lost weight or you look tired are risky. Even if well-intentioned, they can land badly. So there you have it, the unspoken rules of English social etiquette the textbooks never teach you. From the real meaning behind "how are you" to the sacred art of cueing, these invisible codes shape every interaction in English-speaking cultures. Remember, these rules aren't about being fake or superficial. They're about showing respect, building connection, and making everyone feel comfortable. They're the social framework that allows diverse groups of people to interact smoothly. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you understand these unspoken rules, you'll feel so much more confident. You'll know when to speak up and when to hold back, how to enter conversations and how to exit them gracefully, what to bring to a dinner party and how to thank your host afterward. Will you make mistakes? Of course. Everyone does, including native speakers. But now you have the knowledge to navigate English-speaking social situations with awareness and confidence. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Which of these unspoken rules surprised you the most? And which ones are completely different in your culture? Share in the comments below. I love hearing about cultural differences. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to English TalkNest for more content that goes beyond grammar and vocabulary to help you truly understand English-speaking cultures. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, you've got this.